You are listening to episode 65 of Lifestyle Locker Radio with Dr. Evan Hirsch.
We're 10% human cells and 90% bug cells. We've acquired all of these bugs in order to function properly. They help us make our vitamins and minerals and process things and speak to our immune system, and it's just kind of amazing.
Hi, I'm Dr. Josh Hand, and welcome to the Lifestyle Locker Radio, where we dive into what makes an awesome lifestyle. From relationships to money mindset, nutrition to fitness, emotional health to peak performance, we bring you on an amazing journey to unleashing your human potential. So here is a little bit about our guest today. Dr. Evan, as he is affectionately known, is the best-selling author of Fix Your Fatigue, the 4-step process to resolving chronic fatigue, achieving abundant energy, and reclaiming your life. And one of the nation's leaders on finding the root causes of chronic fatigue and resolving them. He suffered with chronic fatigue for 5 years before he achieved resolution using the Fix Your Fatigue program that he developed at his Hirsch Center for Integrative Medicine, which is in Olympia, Washington. He has helped hundreds of people resolve their chronic fatigue and is on a mission to help 100,000 more through his videos, online courses, books, one-on-one consults, and training of providers. He has lectured nationally and internationally on topics in integrative and functional medicine and is a board certified in family medicine and integrative medicine. When he's not at the office, this is really cool. You can find him singing musicals, playing basketball, traveling, and my favorite, dancing hip-hop, and spending time with his wife and daughter. So here's our guest today, Dr. Evan Hirsch. Hello, everyone in the locker room today. Our guest is Dr. Evan Hirsch. So, Evan, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Josh.
Well, we're actually pretty excited to have you here. You know, the topic we're going to talk about is a pretty darn popular topic. I hear about it in my practice. I think people talk about it all the time. You're the fatigue doc. You're that guy. So what I want to know is your story. You know, what made you the fatigue doc? I mean, traditional medicine, integrative medicine, fatigue doctor. So let's go. Let's hear it.
Yeah. So I was in medical school. I was always interested in natural medicine. I grew up in New Jersey, so didn't really know, never met a chiropractor, never met a naturopath, but my mom was really holistic. So I kind of came out, learned about holistic medicine in medical school, came out, did residency in family medicine, but was learning already about functional medicine. And so I was already kind of into this world. And then a month after I met my wife, or maybe it was a couple months in, she developed chronic fatigue. Like she was so vibrant and amazing and beautiful. And I'm in my residency. I came out to Olympia, Washington, met her like a month in. And then all of a sudden she's crashed out. You know, her adrenals were flatlined. Nobody knew anything about fatigue. Nobody could help her. Here I am in Seattle area and nobody could help her. And I felt completely powerless. You know, I'm going through my conventional training, family practice. No, I got nothing, and it was awful. It hurt so bad. And then she got better after about 3 years. She did saunas and she was doing some adrenal support and she did a lot of emotional work, which was really amazing. That helped bring her out of it. And we had a kid and we got married, not necessarily in that order. We got married, then we had a kid. And she wants me to be clear about that.
I can understand.
Yeah. And then I graduated residency, which was so challenging for me, and started my practice. And then a couple years in, I got hit with fatigue, and I had fatigue for 5 years. And that really began my exploration. I was already treating people with fatigue, and I was helping them out a lot. I had come out, I was doing integrative medicine, progressing into functional medicine. So I was replacing a lot of deficiencies in nutrients and hormones, and I was getting people most of the way better. A lot of people I was getting all the way better. But then, I just couldn't get better. I was doing all these replacement things. And as I kept learning, I learned more and more about environmental medicine, these toxicities that are present in my environment, which are so much a part of my practice right now: heavy metals, chemicals, molds, infections, allergies, emotions, EMFs, the electromagnetic frequencies that are all around us. And so as I got into those, I was able to resolve my fatigue, and then able to resolve hundreds of people's, and just kept getting so much better as I learned about each one of those components. It was just another layer of people that I could help.
That's pretty neat. I was going through your bio and poking on your website and your book. It was interesting when I looked at the Academy, the American Academy of Environmental Medicine, when you're talking about looking at all these things. But is that something that that I see so much of? I mean, I go to conferences in longevity and well-being, and the metals, the EMF, all of these things are starting to really show up, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've been there, but they're just starting to show up in reality. I don't know why they've been hidden for so long. Maybe
they just, we didn't have a lot of great treatments around it. We didn't have a lot of great testing.
Uh-huh.
The best testing for mold really is like the urine mycotoxin test, which is like mold toxin test. Only really been around the last 5 or so years.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Well, that explains that one.
Yeah. So we weren't able to see what kind of mold was in somebody's body. We could treat them based off their symptoms, but we really didn't know. And some of it too is that there's certain organizations that aren't treating these people or understanding it. So like integrative medicine organizations, even functional medicine organizations, not really talking about it. So then the American Academy of Environmental Medicine, they're a really interesting group where they're kind of they're not entirely functional, but they've got all this toxicity experience, and they're more like researchers, which has been really cool. And it's great then to bring that into the clinical world and asking these doctors who've been doing it for years what's working for them.
Okay, so with all these pieces of the fatigue puzzle, I know we're going to go over all of them, probably at least a little bit, right? Are there ones in that group? I mean, you can go if you want to start going through them in a minute, but is there an order that you should start looking at, your fatigue, or forget about that first, actually. How do people know if they're actually fatigued? Like, how do I know I have this chronic fatigue? What are like signs? What are examples?
Yeah. And I'm pretty open to this. I think it's a real gamut. There's some people who are like, no, you've got to have chronic fatigue syndrome, and you have to have, meet all this criteria according to the Centers for Disease Control. I'm really about, who wants more energy.
Okay. Even cooler.
Because I can help everybody who wants more energy. Now, those people who are really, really sick, that's who I really want to work with. But if you are tired and you rest and you sleep and you're getting like 8 hours a night and you're still tired, that's the definition of fatigue. If you're not getting that energy that you want and you're resting appropriately.
Okay. So then now that we have like a little shell of, being exhausted, fatigued, can you go through, I know you have, what did we say? I think 14 or 15, like the causes?
Yeah.
Let's run through them.
That I've found so far. And I'm going to go over them surface, and then we can kind of dive into whichever ones you want to talk more about.
Definitely. Let's do that.
So sleep problems, heavy metal toxicity, hormone dysfunction, infections, nutrient deficiencies, lack of exercise, dehydration, constipation, chemical toxicity, poor oxygenation, mitochondrial dysfunction, mold toxification, methylation issues, psychologic issues, and allergies, food allergies, and inhaled allergies.
Okay, so let's go back a couple here, just so our listeners will understand one of the words that you said that I don't think is methylation. You want to kind of just say what that is, kind of just give us a simple overview of that?
Sure. So methylation is phase 2 detoxification of the liver. So oftentimes people have the MTHFR gene. This is kind of like a newish rage, where you have this gene that doesn't allow you to do this first step in the conversion of methylation, because you have to be able to detoxify in order to get all this crap out of the body that I'm talking about. And if you don't, and if you can't, then you're all blocked up. then you're not going to be able to detoxify, and you're going to have, you potentially could have fatigue and other problems.
Okay, so good. So methylation and detox. I just want them to keep that in their head. So there's a few that I think are really interesting that our listeners will definitely want to learn more. One is fitness, is exercise, lack of exercise. I know people that are listening, we have people that are crazy exercisers and we have people that are just getting into the fitness world. So lack of exercise, how does that make you more fatigued?
Yeah. So, you go from having PE every single day throughout your life, through high school and whatnot. And then all of a sudden you get into your 20s, college, maybe a little intramural activity. You come out, you start working, family, whatever. And then all of a sudden you start to get tired and you wonder what's going on. Well, one of those things might be that you haven't maintained that exercise, because exercise is like the panacea. It is like the universal cure for just about everything, because it improves detoxification. It flushes stuff out of your lymph. It turns on mitochondria, which is the energy center of every cell in the body. I mean, it's just so good for so many different things in the body. And so that could be one of the issues. However, with my patients who come to see me, and some of these people who might be watching, they're like, I can't get off the couch. My energy is so bad. My fatigue is so bad. How am I going to be able to go exercise? And for those people, they don't need to be exercising until their adrenals are better, until they have more energy. And then you start introducing the exercise and it kind of takes them to the next level. But there's so much replacement that has to happen first before we can get them there.
Yeah, but it's funny. I'm just thinking what some people are thinking exercise makes me tired. If I'm so tired now, how what? This doesn't even make sense. Doesn't even make sense. So, exercise is important, and just to kind of laugh for a second a little bit, you looking at your bio, and I think this is so cool because I love seeing that people are real, and you seem like a real person. Just putting this in your bio, right? Like hip hop dancing, playing basketball. I'm like, right, this guy's cool. So you're go to places to hip hop dance, or you do that at home? What do you do?
Yeah, well, I used to do it at a class, and then we have Olympia dance co-op where you can go and dance at this place on Thursday nights. And oftentimes I just kind of turn it up at home and I dance
That's
it
awesome.
out with my 9-year-old. We just love to, hip hop dance and whatnot. So it's got to be fun. So that's the thing for me, is that I don't want to go for a run. I need it to be fun. It needs to be basketball. It needs to be hip hop. It needs to be something fun.
That's great. And so those that are listening that are thinking about exercise, that is actually a form of exercise. It's movement, right? I'm just kind of trying to plant some seeds in people that are just getting into this, right? So you also talked about oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
So talking about oxygen, lack of oxygen, I think you said?
Yeah, lack of oxygenation. So that is generally obstruction. So we're talking people who have sinus issues, chronic sinus issues, of which half of them are generally from fungus, which is mold and or yeast. And that's going to inhibit your ability to get oxygen in. Or if someone has obstructive sleep apnea because their tongue is too big or their neck is too big and their tongue is fallen back and they're snoring, snoring is basically breathing against a wall. And so as you're breathing against that wall, you're building up pressure in your body and you're not getting enough oxygen into your body, and you get consequences from that as well.
Oh, I didn't know that snoring was that blocking of oxygen. Wow.
Yeah, you're basically breathing against a wall, and it increases the pressure in the body. It increases the pressure in the lungs, and then consequently in the right side of the heart, and then it goes through the body, and then you get left side of the heart issues. So a lot of people have headaches in the morning. They have high blood pressure. Those are kind of some of those signs associated with snoring if they have obstructive sleep apnea.
Wow. Okay. This is good. I'm glad we're going in this way. Another one you mentioned, and you mentioned just a second ago as well, is the mitochondria, the powerhouse, the energy house of the cell. When you speak about them in your book, you're talking about maximizing them. Is that what you're focusing on with your clients? Patients?
So the mitochondria needs to be repaired, and it needs to be maximized, and you need more mitochondria. So what ends up happening is that what I call the usual suspects, heavy metals, chemicals, molds, and infections, they all damage the mitochondria. So picture them taking a pickaxe and they're knocking this mitochondria down, and then the mitochondria become leaky. You're not making, like 80% of our energy, our ATP, comes from this mitochondria, which is in every cell in the body except for red blood cells. And they're chipping away at this and they're causing problems. So not only do you have to repair the mitochondria, but you also have to boost it up. You have to increase the number of mitochondria you have. And then, of course, you have to remove this insult. So you have to get those usual suspects off of the mitochondria and out of the body so they can stop damaging it.
And so are you repairing them? Are you replacing them with stronger ones? Like what's the ultimate goal with mitochondria? I know there's like billions of these things in our body, right?
Yeah, well, it's a combination. I definitely believe in the inherent wisdom and the strength of the body, where if you remove the crap out of the body that's not supposed to be there, that it's going to come back. But you usually need to inject it with something, glutathione, lipoic acid, acetyl L-carnitine, CoQ10. A lot of these things just are PQQ. They're great for boosting, repairing, and then increasing that number of mitochondria.
That's great, because I've been reading quite a bit and learning about this over the past maybe year or so, and it's quite fascinating, the mitochondrial portion of energy alone, and that is that bacteria, right?
Yeah, it's bacterial ancestry. It's so cool, thinking back to our organism, I don't know how many millions of years ago, where we incorporated this bacteria that can make a ton of energy. And so we were able to harness it in order to make our organism function. It's just like, we're 10% human cells and 90% bug cells. We've acquired all of these bugs in order to function properly. They help us make our vitamins and minerals and process things and speak to our immune system. And it's just kind of amazing. Yeah.
And for those listening, all bacteria are obviously now, are not bad for you.
Right.
You need this to live.
It's crazy.
Cool. Yeah, it is very cool. So also there's something in the beginning of your book that I really liked when you were describing all the 15 different things, like individually. You mentioned, like a patient coming in with fatigue is like having 16 or 15 nails in their foot. And the patient comes in and is like, you just take a nail out. No, the fatigue's not going to get better. The pain's not going to get better by taking that one nail out. So when you got to take all of them out, right?
Right.
Right. So when you're working with your patients in the most recently with all the stuff you've been learning, are you finding that it's one major thing, or it's a lot of little things for most people that are causing their fatigue?
Yeah, it's always a combination, and the challenge really is that everybody has a different combination. Which is why the research doesn't work, is because they want you to change like one variable. But, if somebody's got gluten sensitivity and they have Bartonella infection and they have mold, their treatment's going to be very different than someone's who's got heavy metals, babesia, and dairy issues. So that's why when people are like, I changed my diet and I didn't notice a difference. And it's like, yeah, that's because that's 1/16 of the problem, right?
Yeah.
You've only pulled out that one nail. Now, if you remove the Bartonella nail and you remove the mold nail, guess what? All of a sudden, you notice a big difference when you pull out that gluten nail.
Yeah, that third nail, yeah.
Right. So that's why I have to tell people that, hey, you got to hang in there. And it's because it's a big part of this puzzle, and all of those pieces are super duper important. But I also am flexible with people where they're like, you know what, I really can't do this right now. And I'm like, well, I'd rather that you take the treatment for this other thing right now, because it's going to give you the biggest bang for the buck and you're going to notice the biggest difference. And then we can come back to the diet.
Yeah. So when you are treating patients, you're working with patients, is there like a set test that you do, or is it all come from, listening in like the history with the patient, or is it just like, all right, we got these 4 things, we're going to run these tests and we're going to look at everything and go from there?
Yeah, no, it's all individualized, and so the general theory that I tell people is that we're boosting all of the deficiencies that are present, nutrient deficiencies, hormonal deficiencies, so that you feel better right away. And so you can tolerate when we start going after the crap. Crap's a technical term, by the way.
It is. I know that very well. I'm from New York,
That's right. And we're removing the heavy metals and the chemicals and the molds and the infections and the allergies and the emotions and the EMFs. Like, we have to be strong first, right, by getting those deficiencies up. But some people might have thyroid deficiency and some people might not. So it's always individualized.
Okay, that's good to know. And there's another thing that I wanted to ask about. You have, when we were pre-show and all the stuff I've looked at beforehand, you mentioned chronic infections with fatigue. Can you kind of just give us a little bit, like, is that one of the biggies?
Yeah, it's totally one of the biggies. And nobody's talking about it enough. And I love treating these chronic infections because, number one, I've got great tools. And number two, it totally pushes the needle. Like, for example, someone who comes in who's got a Bartonella infection, which is kind of this bacteria that travels with Lyme. It's not exactly Lyme. It's really easy to get transmitted. Oftentimes, it just shows up because people have the other usual suspects, heavy metals, chemicals, molds. But people will show up and they've got headaches and neck pain, and they have a hard time sleeping, hard time either falling asleep or staying asleep, anxiety, depression, muscle cramps, usually in the calves. They've got pain on the bottom of their feet, or they've been diagnosed with plantar fasciitis. They have high blood pressure. They have thyroid issues. Like, all of those are pointing to Bartonella. And I treat the Bartonella, and all of that stuff gets better. And so I just love to watch that improvement. It's just so dramatic and so much fun to practice. I mean, silver bullets are a lot of fun no matter what you're doing, but especially in natural medicine. And I'm using herbs. I'm using strong complexes of herbs that are just super potent and do the job really well.
Yeah, using nature, which is so cool, which I love. When I was looking at it, I'm like, wow, he's using, as a medical doctor that's using all this real stuff. How awesome is that? And people are getting well. That's like the big deal. They're not just feeling better, right? I mean, they're actually getting beyond their fatigue and getting beyond their health issues. Like you said, there's a whole list of things that may disappear, and good things start to show up just because you're changing that one piece, that Bartonella, that problem. And you said it's similar to Lyme.
Yeah. So oftentimes it can travel with Lyme. It can, anything that takes a blood meal can transmit these things. So it's not just a tick bite. It could be a mosquito. It could be chiggers. It could be biting flies. It can be from sexual activity. It can be from blood transfusions. And so there's so many different ways of getting it. And it just and most of us have it. It can be transmitted vertically from mother to child. So most of us have these bugs. They just get out of balance. And so when people tell me or ask me, they say, hey, we're going to get rid of this bug entirely, right? I'm like, nah, but do you care if your symptoms are gone? It's not like the bug's in the waiting area ready to come back in. We're reestablishing the balance because most of these bugs, they're just taken care of by the immune system. The immune system is functioning. It's doing what it's supposed to do, keeps these bugs in balance. And you don't have a problem with them. But then you throw in heavy metals, chemicals, and mold, all of a sudden the immune system's off in left field and these bugs have a party. So you don't have to get rid of them entirely. It's not realistic. It's bringing them back into balance the way that they were before you got sick, because they were there, most likely.
That's pretty interesting. I just want to kind of take a 2-second pause and say, everybody that is listening, if this is interesting to you, you have to go to Amazon.com. All right, everybody go to Amazon.com right this second. You can put this on pause, and go find the book, Fix Your Fatigue, because we're just like scratching the surface here. And the book has got so much information in it. You can get it on Kindle. You can get a paper version, get both. Do that now. All right, that's my commercial. So I want to make sure people are going to get that because it's actually really, really good. It's not something, I'm not suffering, at least that I know, right, that with fatigue, but I definitely, resonate with a lot of the information, just in the first couple chapters right off the bat. I'm like, wow, okay, this is really interesting because it's so common, just
right.
Like listening to people talk. It's like, oh, I'm just so exhausted all the time. Wow. And then I think, I don't know when we made the interview, how many, maybe even a month ago or more, right? When we set this interview up, and it's pretty wild. So I'm glad.
Yeah,
we
well,
definitely got in here.
Thank you for that. I mean, it really is a blueprint for living the healthiest life possible. You're going to optimize your sleep. You're going to get on the right diet. You're going to remove toxicities from your life. I mean, all these toxicities have been associated with Alzheimer's and heart attack and heart disease and stroke. And so it's really practicing prevention. It's just on this spectrum of, feeling a little bit tired to feeling really tired to having fatigue to having autoimmunity to having cancer to having Alzheimer's and all these things. It's the same friggin' spectrum. Like it's all this crap that we need to get out of our bodies and start living a really clean life and start moving and going back to basics on where we were, 3 million years ago or a million years ago before we had the introduction of all this technology and industry and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so I was going to ask that next. So as far as environmental toxins, maybe 100 years ago, like when our great-grandparents were kind of young, I hear this from my patients all the time. The young people, like, well, my grandparents didn't eat this. I mean, my grandparents are like 100 years old. How come, I mean, why would we think I can be there? I'm like, well, when they had food, it was called food.
Right.
They got it from a garden or they got it from an animal that was probably slaughtered not too long ago. It was probably walking on some field. The environmental toxins is that way, and with all like the chemicals that are being put in the air and the ground, and are you finding those to be pretty huge? Like show up on almost everybody you test?
Not everybody, but they're still pretty huge. I mean, 100,000 pounds of mercury dumped into our environment every year, 84,000 chemicals into our foods and products. And most of these, aren't tested or, so like, yeah, it's just, and then they're affecting the mitochondria and they're causing immune system dysfunction and autoimmunity. And yeah, it's crazy. And it's really, and then they cause the infections. It's just this downhill spiral. But if we can get back to basics and we can try to avoid all this stuff best we can, really detoxify, getting in our saunas and all that sort of stuff, it can make such a world of difference.
Yeah, and I also want to touch on EMFs because I spoke to a cardiologist that actually that was the first person that actually started to talk to me about this. I'm like, really? A cardiologist? Like, I didn't think our conversation was going there. And I'm interviewing another expert on EMFs later in the month, I believe. But it's been so amazing. I'm wearing something called like a Q-Link. I don't know if you've ever, yeah, right? Like that. This thing has been connected to me ever since that conversation. So can you talk a little more? I mean, we like kind of touched the surface with it in my last conversation, but can you talk a little more on EMS and how it's affecting, maybe even down to the cellular level, like causing fatigue?
Absolutely. So we know that it's damaging DNA and we're all being affected by it. We just don't know. Some people are more affected than others. And this is what I call the barrel effect, where basically the amount of crap that you have in your barrel, the more crap that you have, the more likely you're going to be sensitive to EMFs. So what I do to treat people for EMFs, sometimes it's removing the EMFs. Oftentimes people can't stand in front of computers or batteries for an extended period of time, but it's removing heavy metals and chemicals and molds and infections and allergies and emotions. So basically getting all that crap out of the body, and then all of a sudden the barrel is empty or emptier, and then you put the EMFs in there and they're no longer reactive.
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, it's twofold. If we want to remove the symptoms, we can do that, but there's still this toxicity going on that we have to, I mean, I definitely don't want Wi-Fi throughout my entire town. That's going to be really bad.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of really great options available for preventing the EMFs, like the Q-Link. I've heard good and bad about those. I used to wear one. I don't wear one anymore, but I do have a covering for my cell phone because I've taken like a tri-field meter and tested to see what the EMFs are coming off of my phone, and then I put this case on, and then the EMFs resolve. So I'm like, okay, that's good data for me, but I don't know as much about the EMFs around us and coming into our bodies. What are we going to wear? Am I going to wear like a cell phone case?
Yeah.
How do I
silver
prevent
suits,
this stuff?
right? You see on TV. That's where we're all going to be walking around soon with our cell phone outside of it.
Right. So I don't know what the solution is right now.
Yeah.
I think there's more stuff coming down the pike. There's some people who are doing like the canopies over the beds. I know that can be really helpful for autistic kids, turning off the power to the whole house at night before you go bed. Shutting off, you can put your Wi-Fi on so that it's off at certain times during the day so that you're not being exposed. So I think it's more about removing exposure and less about trying to mitigate it with some of these pieces of equipment, though I am open to that, and I hope they work, because I definitely employ some of them in my practice and in my home. So I'll be definitely listening for that interview to hear who you have on to learn some more. Yeah, no, it's interesting, and just the EMF is not that I want to spend a lot of time on it, but you said like Wi-Fi around town, and there's like these new technologies, and with the cell phones, like I think it's like 5G instead of 4G. They're saying it's going to screw up a lot. I don't know enough at all about it, but it's interesting that it affects you down to that cellular level. And it's scary because it's not something you can like, I'm going to detox. But no, it's still there. Nonetheless, all right, let's move forward. I got to go on a rant here myself. So let's go here, because we've got so much good information that you've shared so far. If you could give the audience 3 solid golden nuggets to listen, you should do these 3 things. I want you to take action today, not tomorrow. Do this, or listen to this, read this, whatever it may be, and in any order you want. What would you give? So the first one would be go paleo. So that means a diet of meat and vegetables, low to no grains, definitely gluten-free. I've just seen amazing things happen with it. I start everybody off on that I can. If they're vegan or vegetarian, it's a little bit more challenging, but I just get incredible results with it. And people are like, oh, but all this animal fat and eggs and all that sort of stuff, isn't that going to mess with my cholesterol? Absolutely not. It improves most people's cholesterol. It causes people to lose weight, usually about 10% of their weight they will lose in the first 2 months, and then they will continue to lose 3 pounds a month until they get down to their high school weight, as long as they were healthy in high school. That's so cool. And as long as everything else is fixed, like if they've got thyroid that's going to be off, that's going to mess with things too. But it's so amazing. And that's because of the gluten and the amount of water retention that the gluten causes, and wheat has been hybridized, we've been in this form for 3 million years. Wheat came around about 10,000 years ago. It was about a 7 chromosome organism. Now it's a 49 chromosome organism. I tell people it's like eating a sock. I mean, this wheat is like, I love it. It's so foreign to our bodies. Our immune system sees it, and it just starts attacking it and causing inflammation. We know that it damages our gut every time we consume it. So gluten is definitely a bad boy. Dairy is bad as well for a number of reasons too. But going meat and veggies with the paleo diet, definitely number 1. Good. So before you go to 2, and I don't know if this is like a common conversation with your patients. It is with mine and some family members and other people, is complaining about X, Y, and Z. I'm like, listen, just do something real simple here. I know you exercise, I know you do these things. Let's cut dairy and grain out of your diet completely. What am I going to eat? Right. That's the common answer. I'm like, what am I going to eat? I'm like, what are you going to eat? Are you kidding me? What are you going to eat? So true. It's so like, it's amazing how we're so brand and brainwashed that we don't think we can do it until you're like, wow, it's actually, why is my head clear? Why do I feel so awesome? Going paleo and eating that way. I'm 100% for it. I eat paleo probably 100% of the time. Not really. No, I probably about 60 to 80% of the time. I'm like pretty clean with my food because it's a game changer. Yeah. Yeah. So it's so great. And it's so challenging for people to change because gluten, the protein found in wheat, and casein, the protein found in dairy, both produce morphines in the gut. So essentially, when you don't have these foods, you're going through withdrawals. Okay. And then people satisfy that by eating it. They're like, oh man, I just crave bread. I just gotta have bread. And they eat it and they're like, oh yeah, I'm really satisfied. Yeah. And it's because they're going through these withdrawals. And it's also why you get a lot of the consequences because of the narcotic in the gut. Wow, it's interesting. I've also heard, and I don't remember where I heard it from, but in the brain as well, it's kind of has the same addictive factor, like the same firing is almost like having cocaine. Right. I don't know. I don't know if that's wholly true, but I remember hearing that. I don't know if on a podcast or in a journal or something, but. Yeah, and it's sugar. It's sugar that's more addictive. Oh, sugar. I'm sorry. That's sugar.
I
Yeah,
apologize.
for
That's
sure.
what it
No,
is.
no, I mean they're all operating through those same addictive mechanisms, and that are being then taken up by the food industry that, are really specialists in addiction, because they're constantly feeding that. But and it is hard because also of the emotions. Are you telling me that I can't eat what my mom fed me when I was sick? When I was younger? Like this is my heart here. You're killing me. And so I definitely have people do baby steps. So the first thing that I'll have them do is cut out gluten. So I said, make everything gluten free. So if you're eating pasta for dinner or you're eating bread or whatever, okay, just cut out gluten. And so all of a sudden, then they start improving. And then they're like, okay, well, what's next? Or, like they want more because they're getting a taste of, because they don't believe you. They don't believe that changing these foods is going to make that much of a difference to them until they start experiencing it themselves.
Yeah, good. I'm glad we got on a rant on that because that was, I think, very necessary.
That's a good one.
It was. Number two, what do we got?
Number two is sleep. So I've never met anybody who can get rid of their fatigue if they're not going to bed at 10:30 at the latest. Now, there are some people who, their clocks are completely switched. And so it definitely takes a while. They have to move down if they're like going to bed at midnight. We got to back it down a little bit at a time while we're recreating their circadian rhythm or their sleep-wake cycle. But like going to bed at 10, getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep makes such a huge difference. My mom said when I was growing up, that the hours you get before midnight count as double. And I don't know where she got that from,
interesting. Yeah.
but it really works. It really works. And I get more people to sleep at night by giving them things in the morning.
Yeah.
So I give them adrenal support, thyroid, B12, all of these things that have an effect on their sleep-wake cycle. So most of the time, if people are like tired during the day, they're kind of like asleep and awake during the day, and then they're asleep and awake at night instead of being awake during the day and then asleep at night.
Yeah. How true is that, right?
Ah.
People are so zonked all day.
Mm-hmm.
I think New York City is half zombies. I mean, like living zombies. Because they're just
I bet, and we're all.
out.
I mean, I'm out here in Seattle, and we've got everybody's drinking their coffee and whatnot, and that's just whipping their adrenals to produce more cortisol, which is our main get up and go hormone, until you can no longer do that, and then you just can't survive without that caffeine, and you're getting headaches if you're not taking it, and you're like, what happened? Caffeine isn't really the best thing for us.
Yeah. All right. So good. We got sleep. We got paleo. What's number 3?
I actually don't remember what I wrote down.
Oh, hold on. I think you. Well, let me look here. Well, you can make one up.
I could totally make one up. I'm just trying to remember.
Don't worry about what you gave me. Let's go, man. This is real deal here. You're doing good.
Right, so,
I love it.
Nice. So let's do exercise.
Okay.
I'm debating between exercise and cleaning up your home products. I mean, we talked about exercise, so let's do home products. So getting rid of your aftershave and your perfume and your cologne, and making sure that if you are going to use them, that they're all clean products. That 70% of all lipsticks have lead in them. So,
no kidding.
So everybody who's watching right now, go to EWG for environmentalworkinggroup.org/skin-deep, SKINDEEP. And the Environmental Working Group has done a great job of testing and ranking so many thousands and thousands of products that are on the market. You can put in your lipstick and see how toxic it is. And then you can look and see which products would be cleaner, which ones have like a 0 rating instead of yours, which has like an 8 because of the amount of toxins that are present. So that's a huge one, making sure that, any sort of dish soap that you're using is eco brand or, 7th generation. Same thing with everything that's on your like laundry soap, and just trying to decrease the amount of fragrances. Anything that smells, it's probably toxic. Unfortunately, it's one of those 84,000 chemicals that are being dumped into our environment every single year. Along those same lines, going organic. All of these pesticides are becoming a major cause of type 2 diabetes because of its effect on the pancreas, and those are just chemicals. So going more organic, so yeah, that's number 3.
Chemicals. That's huge. 84. You got 84,000 reasons you can give us, I hope.
Indeed, we might take a while.
Hold on, let me go to the time real quick. All right, go. No, I'm just kidding. So you said it was ewg.org/skin deep.
Right.
Okay. That's great. And do you find this also, you talk about the chemicals. I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm crazy, but do we also start to think about the clothes we wear?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, I mean, if there, there are a lot of clothes that are off-gassing, or a lot of products that are made from these pesticides that still have pesticides residues on them. I don't know a ton about the different kinds and can't really recommend. Maybe you know more, but that would be something.
You get my brain thinking. That's why I'm asking.
Okay. Yeah. Anything. If you think about everything, sit down and think about everything that's in your environment, everything that you come in contact with, and think about how you can make it cleaner. Or ask, is this toxic for me? Is this not good for me? Because it's just clogging up those detoxification pathways, and damaging your mitochondria, causing autoimmune disease over here. So it's the trifecta.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a question that my wife would ask, or my sister would ask. I can't use perfume.
Right.
What am I using?
Well, you can use essential oils.
Perfect. Well, we got gobs of like a really organic, good essential oils. I just want to make sure, because that's a big thing, and I bet you I will get messages after this is published, like, well, if I can't wear perfume, what about deodorant? Like aluminum,
right?
Right? No,
exactly.
That goes in. So there are a lot of great resources, people.
Yeah, and natural fragrances. I shouldn't say no fragrances, but most of the people who are walking around with fragrances aren't doing natural fragrances. But look at it on Skin Deep. What is it ranked? Use natural fragrances, and that's what essential oils are.
All right.
I think my deodorant is lavender mixed with some sort of binder or whatever. I mean, that's it. Made by a local guy.
Yeah. My wife now started making it. So
nice.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of messy, but it really works really well. But so Dr. Evan, how do people find you? We have a lot of links. Give the main one you want people to go to. We're going to put everything in the show notes. So what's the main one you want?
So the main one is fixyourfatigue.org, FIXYOUR, fatigue, FATIGUE.org. And there they can sign up for a free 15-minute consult. They can learn more about my book. They can go to the book. They can take a free quiz to see if they have Bartonella. They can download my free sleep guide. And I'm on a mission to help 100,000 people resolve their chronic fatigue. And so I've created this essentially this tiered system that goes from $5 for a Kindle, $18 for the paperback, to classes that are going to be coming out that'll probably be in the $1,000 range, to working with me, which is more expensive one-on-one. But I want everybody to be able to get help no matter where they're at financially. And so that's kind of why I've created this system, so that everybody can get better.
That's great. Well, I am super glad that we got to meet today and chat on Skype. I think this is so cool. And I'm heading out west, but I'm not going to be going up where you are. I would like to hang out and maybe get an herbal tea instead of a Java.
That's right, for sure.
But, so everybody, Lifestyle Locker, Dr. Evan Hirsch, thank you so much. We will be chatting soon, and we will be getting people, how do I say this, fatigue free?
That's right.
Awesome.
Amen.
All right, brother.
Thanks, Josh.
Bye-bye. All right, so I hope you all liked the hip-hop dancing doctor from Washington, Dr. Evan Hirsch. Pretty cool dude, I have to admit. And man, the brain on this guy, so cool. If he's not going to help 100,000 people, he'll probably help like 100 million people with fatigue, with his techniques and his training and all of these cool things. He's got a couple cool gifts for you. I want you to make sure you go to our show notes. He's going to give you his free sleep guide. We'll have the link on our website. And you should join. He's got a free Fix Your Fatigue Facebook group. If it's something that fits your life at the moment, jump in on there. I mean, if you just want some more energy, get in on the group and create conversations with others there, as well as Dr. Evan as well. So, Locker Nation, make sure you give Lifestyle Locker Radio a 5-star review. You know, this is a free podcast, and if you actually have two things you need to do. If you're finding value, leave a review. That helps me. And two, you can help someone else that you care about. If you think the information we are sharing is valuable, please share it with someone you care about, someone you love, because it may help or change their lives too. Until next time, Locker Nation, peace out.